So, ever since the COVID lockdown started here in Australia, there's been a bigger call here to support local businesses. Now, call me a sucker for marketing, but for me, that started a bit of a trend of buying more Australian watch brands. And over the past year or so, I bought several different Aussie pieces, but there was one particular brand I've been eyeballing to buy during this time, but always got cold feet at the end. But after talking to a few other watch aficionados and hearing their positive experiences with this brand, and with the added bonus of a sale at my local jewelers, I went ahead and bought myself one of their more conservative offerings, an Adina Countrymaster. So just to bring up some of the measurements and specs here, you've got a 44.9mm case diameter, 52mm watch length from lug tip to lug tip, 9.85mm case thickness, and with the bracelet it comes in at 150 grams. And powering this juggernaut of a watch is a Swiss Ronda 715 quartz movement, and protecting its innards is a flat sapphire crystal and 100 meters of water resistance. So let's start by talking about the positives of this watch. Now for me, the best thing about it is its case. Admittedly, it has a bit of heft, but it feels incredibly solid, like you're wearing a slab of steel on your wrist. It feels like it could take a lot of punishment and still tick along without any dramas as well. But I guess this makes sense considering the watch's name and the type of people that'll likely be wearing it for their work. It's also got this hexagonal shape that, according to Adina at least, protects the watch and lets it stand out in the crowd. And I think it's that standout part that helped sway my decision to get this particular model. But really, I think they did it well here, is because the shape looks subtle enough to appear both traditional but slightly unique. On the wrist, it feels surprisingly comfortable, and its weight, while a bit noticeable, gives it that sturdy feeling. And at just under 10mm, you can also wear this under the cuff of a long sleeve shirt. The 100 meters of water resistance is certainly useful as well, as you'll be able to take this piece on any swimming expedition without any dramas. I should point out that this watch doesn't have a screw-down crown, although Adina claim on their website that their bi-O-ring crown offers superior water and dust resistance. There's also a really small gap between the crown and the guard, so it offers additional protection as well as making it easy to grip and manipulate. It isn't signed, but at this price point it's not a big deal. The next thing I like to rave about is the dial. The photos on Adina's website give a very flat black appearance, but in the flesh it's got more of a greyish light charcoal colouring, and I much prefer this as it helps the dial stand out a bit more and gives it a bit more personality. But speaking of stand out and personality, check out these Arabic numeral indices. They're big, they're bold, and they jump right out at you. And I also like the fact they've got a bit of an italic look to them where they lean to the right a bit, giving it a slightly assertive appearance. Like the case, it looks mainstream enough, but just a little bit different. And I also like how they managed to incorporate both a day and date complication at the 3 o'clock position and keep most of that number 3 indice without chopping out too much of it or even removing it. And for me, that helps with the dial symmetry more. The hands look like a combination of baton and pencil style that are nice and thick, but they thin out just a bit going towards the dial edge, but still remain very legible. And the red seconds hand here further helps with this legibility and gives the watch a little bit more character again. On the dial, you've got the Adina logo at the top with the advertised 100 meters water resistance rating and the watch's Countrymaster logo underneath, and in slight letters, Adina made running along at the bottom. The calligraphy style of the bottle name could throw some people, I guess, but I felt it was done tastefully, and neither the logo or text are large or overbearing either. It allows you to focus more on the dial and the time. So moving on to other parts of the watch that are a mix of good and bad, or just things to consider in general. For me, the biggest make or break point for this particular watch is going to be its dimensions. At a pinch under 45mm in diameter and a 52mm lug to lug, it probably won't be at the top of the shopping list for people with smaller wrists. One thing I should quickly mention too is that I've checked the Countrymaster lineup on the Adina website, and their other models range in sizes between the smaller 34 to 37mm diameter and, in this example, up to almost 45mm. It doesn't appear to be any other sizes in between these numbers unless you're looking for a really nice 42mm pocket watch. So in that regard, there isn't much middle ground on sizing, so you'll need to keep that in mind. The Louvre numerals and pip indices light up really nice and bright, and they keep their charge really well for hours afterwards in the dark. The hands are a bit of a different story though. When you fully charge volume on the dial, the hands glow but noticeably less bright than the numerals and indices. So although I'd say the hands are okay, the dial at least makes up for this, and overall I was still pretty impressed. The steel case back here is nothing really to write home about. The Adina logo and name are all laser etched into the back, along with its specifications and the designed and hand finished in Australia comment. Most people probably don't care about case back designs or features, but if you were hoping for some pizzazz here, you ain't going to get it. The finishing on the case is a bit of a mishmash too. We've got a brush finish on top of the case, yet the sides appear to be more polished. The brushed element works well with the case, but I'm not so sure about these polished sides, especially as this watch was designed more for people that plan to wear it in hard-working conditions. And if that's going to be the case for you, just be prepared for some noticeable marks on those sides. And finally here, that bracelet here, it's comfortable enough to wear once you adjust it correctly. I don't recommend wearing it too loosely though, otherwise those gaps in between the links will give your wrist a free wax job. The bracelet is held together with screw pins, and they look and feel secure, and with the right screwdriver size, resizing the bracelet is an absolute doddle. And if you don't fancy messing with the links too much, there are 4 micro adjustments here on the clasp, so there's a little bit of flexibility there. But as for the rest of this bracelet, this is where I start to segue into the negatives of this watch. The bracelet itself looks and feels really basic, and that's kind of reinforced by that jingle jangle rattle when you're moving it around. But the deployment clasp, I think, is perhaps the weakest link of this watch. The feel and quality of it looks like something I get on a sub $100 watch, and there's no release buttons, just a hook and clasp mechanism. This makes taking the watch off a bit more troublesome, as you've got to get a good fingernail underneath the clasp and then give it a decent yank to prise it open, and then a good push to close it up. And while it's still early days of this watch, I feel this will probably affect its longevity. You've also got these raised polish ends at the 12 and 6 o'clock positions. This is obviously a design cue so that the case and bracelet design flow together with those polished links. But if you're planning on swapping for another strap, you'll have to get a similarly styled bracelet to retain that flow. Otherwise, a different style of bracelet or strap can break that symmetry and make those polished bits look out of place. And personally, I think those should have been omitted from the case. Similar to the sides of the case, the polished middle links on that bracelet will definitely scratch up if you're intending to use this as a beater watch. And while I remember the topic of swapping bracelets and straps, one of the biggest gripes I have with this watch is its lug width. At 23mm, I know of very, very few online vendors that stock bracelets or straps at this width, so it's either a case of good luck finding an alternative, or I guess you can do what I just did and squeeze a 24mm strap in. So at the full retail price of 299 Australian dollars, it represents decent value for money considering its build quality and the fact it's designed and assembled here in the land of Oz. And seeing as I picked this one up on special from my local jeweler for $250, that kind of makes the ownership proposition a little bit sweeter. I mean, sure, you may only be getting a quartz movement and the bracelet leaves a lot to be desired, but it's using a Swiss movement, it feels built like a brick outhouse, and overall it's a very practical and functional watch. I guess bear in mind, however, that there are other beater watch propositions out there at a similar or cheaper price point that have other features that may suit your needs, such as additional timekeeping functionality, increased water resistance, reduced weight, or better lighting. But if you're looking for a solid Aussie watch that won't break your budget, this is one I'd recommend to have a look at. But if you've currently or previously owned an Adina watch, let me know your thoughts and experiences about it in the comments below, and thank you for watching.